As I begin mixing colors, I'm trying to make major color groups, not all of the colors in the painting. I'll be mixing colors as I go, and especially mixing wet on wet on the canvas. As I mix a color, you'll see an orange dot on the photograph of the mountain scene showing you the general area that I'm trying to match. When I mix colors, I'm not being mechanistic. I'm not thinking one part of this and two parts of that. I'm simply using the general color rules that we learned as kids. Red and blue make purple, and blue and yellow make green, and so on. I think in terms also of making things warmer or cooler. Warmer using yellows or reds, cooler using blues. As I'm mixing the sky color, I'm not trying to make it as intense as you see in the photograph. Digital photographs, tend to intensify blues more than we see them, especially, and all colors can be a little more intense than I want them in the final painting. One of the differences between a more subtle, professional, realistic painting and what we do when we're starting out as amateurs is, as amateurs, we tend to make colors brighter than they are in nature. We see colors brighter than they really are. If you get, for example, a bright blade of grass, bring it inside and try to match it, you'll see it's kind of a duller olive green and not as bright as we think it is. So here I'm mixing a brown color using just raw umber and a little bit of white. That sky color was cobalt blue and white, and a little bit of phthalo as I go. This tan color is the main color of the larger mountain. So I'm using raw umber and white. So now I'll mix a little bit darker brown, still using raw umber and white. And I'm adding a little bit of sap green to it. Seeing color and matching colors can be, just takes a lot of experience. It just takes some practice. If you've printed out a photograph to work from, then you can just actually touch the paint to the photograph and see if you're getting close. If you're painting from life, then you can hold up your palette knife about arm's length in front of the colors you're trying to match. You can get pretty close. Here I'm mixing the lighter color for the mountains in the background. Add a little bit of violet to this raw umber and white mix. And I need a little bit lighter version of that. So just adding some white. Now I'll turn to my greens. I have a sap green, and I'll mix some raw umber into this. That gives me a very dark green for my shadows. Now I want a little more of a medium green, so I'm mixing raw umber and that lighter green on the palette. And a little bit of phthalo green to intensify it. Phthalo green, phthalo blue, very intense colors. You need very little to change the color, to make it a little greener, a little bluer if you're using phthalo blue. Now I'm going to make a bluer green. Just take some of that last green that I mixed and add some cobalt to it. And then a lighter green. Of course, staying within a color group, I'm going to warm that up a little bit with some raw sienna. Now I'll mix a very bluish green for the dark shadows within the trees. And I'm using phthalo blue and raw umber. If I take a little bit of that color and add some white to it, I can get a nice bluish gray for some of those mountains in the background. Adding white, of course. As I paint, so I usually will start, if I'm going to have a range of grays, for example, I'll start with a medium gray, a little bit darker gray. It's a lot more efficient to lighten colors than to darken them. When we darken colors, we have to think about which dark colors to add to make the overall color darker. Now I'll mix the base color for the foreground rocks, raw sienna and burnt sienna. A little bit of white. I don't need to get this very dark because I can use raw umber and burnt umber for shadows as I paint. And last, I realize I haven't mixed a lighter green that I'll need to highlight the trees and areas that are in the direct sun. So some of this medium green and raw sienna. So now you're ready to paint. You've got all the colors that you need to get started. And there again, I would always mix more colors instead of less. It can be very inefficient and distracting to have to constantly start over and mix new colors to have enough to get where you're going.